Today, we are diving into the life of one of the most famous artists in history, Vincent van Gogh. His story is just as vivid and, let's face it, as turbulent as one of his canvases. But how much of what we think we know is the real story, and how much is just myth? Let's figure it out.
Okay, so let's get right into it. When you hear the name Van Gogh, the words on the left probably pop into your head, right? The madman, the loner, the ultimate failure. It's this powerful story of a tortured genius. But the reality? Well, if you look at his letters and his actual life, it's so much more complicated and, frankly, more interesting. He wasn't just some madman. He was an incredibly eloquent writer. And a failure? Not even close. He was a flat-out revolutionary who changed art forever. So, the big question is, how did that first story, the myth of the mad artist, totally overshadow the truth about this incredible revolutionary man? In this explainer, we're going to peel back those layers of legend to find the real Vincent and figure out how an artist who sold almost nothing in his own lifetime became a true immortal icon.
All right, let's start at the beginning, because Vincent, well, he was anything but a prodigy. Honestly, his early life was really just a long search for purpose and this profound feeling that he just didn't fit in anywhere. I mean, look at this list. Before he ever really dedicated himself to art, Van Gogh tried and failed at a whole bunch of pretty respectable careers. He just kind of drifted from one thing to the next, often sick, often alone, and just completely unable to find his footing in the world.
So at 28 years old, he finally turns to art, pretty much as a last resort. You can imagine his family was deeply concerned. And his early paintings, like the famous The Potato Eaters, they really show you what that period felt like. They're dark, they're earthy, they're raw. You can feel the hardship in them.
And get this, even his biggest supporter, his brother Theo, who was literally an art dealer in Paris, couldn't sell them. Theo himself said it. Vincent's work was just totally out of step with what was popular. People wanted bright, happy Impressionist paintings, and Vincent was giving them this dark, moody stuff. Commercially, he was a complete zero.
But then we get to the moment where everything, and I mean everything, changed for Vincent. It wasn't a single person or place that did it. He was about to walk into an entirely new artistic universe.
He moves to Paris to live with his brother, and the city's art scene just hits him like a bolt of lightning. For an artist who had, up to this point, been painting in shades of brown and gray, it was like his whole world switched from black and white to Technicolor.
You can see here how all these different things just collided and totally transformed his work. He's seeing Impressionism with its bright, fleeting light. He's seeing the scientific dots of Pointillism. He's meeting other cutting-edge artists, and he's falling in love with these bold, colorful Japanese woodblock prints. All those dark, earthy tones from Holland, gone, replaced by this dazzling explosion of color.
But Paris was intense, and he started to feel pretty worn out. So in 1888, he heads south to a town called Arles, and there, under the brilliant light of Provence, he enters the most productive and now legendary period of his entire life.
Just stop and think about those numbers. 200 paintings and 100 drawings in a little over a year. It's absolutely staggering. He was just energized by that southern sun, and he finally nails down his signature style. You know, the thick, swirling brushstrokes, the vibrant yellows and blues. And he has this dream of starting an artist's colony in his yellow house.
And this is when he creates so many of the pieces we know and love today. We're talking about the sunflowers, bedroom in Arles, the night cafe. He was painting with this incredible newfound confidence, with a vision that was just so clear and powerful. But with that incredible creative high came a devastating low. That dream of an artist colony started to go sour, especially after another famous artist, Paul Gauguin, came to stay.
Their relationship was, as Vincent himself put it, full of excessive tension, and it just fell apart. It all boiled over into this one infamous, horrifying episode, the ear incident, which pretty much sealed his reputation in the public eye as the mad artist.
But when you read his letters from this time, you see a man who is in absolute distress. He's completely aware of his own psychological struggle. He wasn't celebrating his madness. He was fighting desperately against it, trying to make sense of this profound anguish he was feeling.
And this, right here, is the central paradox of his life. He actually voluntarily checks himself into an asylum. And it's there, from his room with a barred window, that he paints one of the greatest works of art in human history, the Starry Night.
His most visionary work wasn't created because of his illness, but right in the middle of his struggle with it.
So let's get to the final part of the story. How does this tragic painter, a man who died at 37, a total commercial failure, become a global phenomenon whose paintings sell for hundreds of millions of dollars? How did that happen?
Well, let's start with this number. 1. That is the number of paintings he officially sold in his entire lifetime. 1. It was called The Red Vineyard, and he sold it for a pretty modest sum to another artist. It's almost impossible to believe. After Vincent's death, and then so tragically Theo's death just 6 months later, the fate of all his art, hundreds of paintings nobody wanted, fell to a sister-in-law, Johanna van Gogh Bonger, and honestly, she is the unsung hero of this entire story. She was left with a baby and all these canvases, and she made it her life's mission to make the world see Vincent's genius.
And she was brilliant. For decades, she worked tirelessly and strategically. She organized exhibitions, she carefully sold paintings to important collectors who would get them seen. And, this was a crucial move, she published his letters to Theo, so the world could finally hear his voice and understand the incredible mind behind the art. Without her, his work might have been lost.
And this chart just says it all. The contrast is absolutely staggering. Work that was considered worthless in his lifetime is now some of the most beloved and valuable art on the planet. He went from zero to one of the most influential figures in history.
Ultimately, Van Gogh's story just forces you to ask, what do we actually value? What is the true measure of an artist? Is it success in your own time, or is it a timeless influence? He may have lost the battle for recognition in his own life, but his vision, his color, his humanity, that left a legacy that's so much richer and longer lasting than any single price tag.